Hello, my love nerds. Welcome to Love Dripping from the Walls, this week's episode of Love Dripping from the Walls. And I am so excited about this week's episode of Love Dripping from the Walls because we have two of my favorite people on the entire planet that I've literally been asking to be on my podcast for a year, almost a year.
About that, yeah.
Around a year. So I am so excited that you two are on my podcast today. So this is my good friend Rusty and Elaine. I like doing this. For those of you watching the YouTube video, that made sense. But we have today Rusty and Elaine. They're two just amazing, amazing friends of mine. So lucky to just even know you. And what I want to talk about on the podcast today is about your relationship. And the reason that I've been asking you for so long to be on my podcast is because your relationship is an example of what's possible. Like the two of you blow the lid off of. Like, it's not even like, oh, this is what's possible, and then like some people do that. It's like you take what's possible and you're like, no, what's possible is like 10 steps beyond that. And then you do that. It's amazing. It's truly inspiring, and I have just felt so privileged to witness it and to, in some cases, be a part of it, you know, as a friend, as a colleague. In some cases, it's been incredible. So anyway, I just want to talk you up because I just can't even. So we're going to so that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today. I just want to share too, like, we got on the call this morning and Elaine and Rusty were like, we're not even sure like why we're here.
Not sure what we can contribute to your podcast. Your podcast is awesome.
Thank you. Well, that's the other thing too, is that Elaine and Rusty have also been huge listeners. I'm going to just highlight that Elaine has been more of a super fan than Rusty.
That is true.
And so that's also like super flattering, you know, for me, is that Elaine has been such a fan of the podcast, and by proxy, Rusty has also been a fan of the podcast as well. But yeah, so I want to, if you guys want to say anything about, you know, who you are, what you do, I'm basically just going to start asking you questions about your relationship and have you kind of go into what your relationship has looked like how it started from the inception, you know, to everything that you have dealt with. Because really it has been every single time that you have been faced with anything, it's like you take what's possible and you're like, no, that is, you're right, that is what's possible. But you know what else is possible? Like light years ahead of that. And
usually we don't even know where that's what's possible to that extent. Like we just create something and then it goes way beyond what we even like could imagine. So
I know. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today, is what's possible in relationships as what you think is possible versus what's actually possible. Yeah. And for those people who are listening, that's what I really want people to get out of today's podcast is, you know, taking that out of the box look. Like, first of all, taking that out of the box look of what is possible, and then knowing that even what you can conceive, there's more to it than that. Like I call it leaving room for miracles. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
And that's totally what you guys
do.
For it. That's totally what you do. You
yeah.
leave room. You think outside of the box, and then you leave room for miracles, and miracles just show up.
That's accurate. Very accurate.
So that's why you're on this podcast today, is because you are a living, breathing example of that. So I want to acknowledge you and also highlight you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to just let you take it away. Is there anything else that you want to say to be introduced? And then I just want you to talk about, you know, how your relationship started and kind of tell your story.
No, I think that pretty much covered. That's a way better introduction than I would have come up with for us. So yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, take it away. How did it all start? Tell me. Tell us.
All right. So I'm
gonna drink from my Queen of Everything mug while you.
Yay. Queen of Everything. That's you.
Yes.
Let's see. Well, the whole process started about 5 years ago. I had been married before. My wife at the time had a lot of health issues, emotional, physical health issues, and she had taken her life. So in the process of processing that, I decided to join a gym close to where I lived, and hired a personal trainer, started getting into fitness through there. And Elaine was a trainer at the gym that I was working out at. And
I don't even think I know that part of the story. This is fun. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you're going to learn some stuff now.
Yeah. Are you going to learn some stuff today? Oh.
And I noticed her pretty quickly. She's very gorgeous. And my first thing was like, I wonder if she's married. And she was at the time. But we got to know each other a little bit through there, but not a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And then in the process of working out with my trainer, I started to really like the idea of being a personal trainer. I was working at Starbucks at the time. And then about maybe a year and a half after we first met, I came back and got a job as a personal trainer at that gym. And the fitness director at the time hired me, took me over to Elaine and said, Elaine, this is Rusty. He's one of our members. He now works here. Train him. So she started training me on how to be a personal trainer. And she was like the top trainer in the company, and, in terms of sales and results and all of that. So who better to, train somebody new? And we got along great just from the get-go. There was an affinity and a connection just right off the bat. We became friends very quickly. And then after about 6 months, I got promoted into weekend fitness director. My partner at the time had also some health things. So, I was dealing with that. She and I were in a poly relationship, and then let's see, came back from that. And about the day I came back, they moved me down to the branch down in Seattle as the fitness director there. So another promotion, and kind of took me out of the Everett club that I had been at. And so we weren't as connected at that point. But Elaine was the district manager for all the Group X classes. And so, we'd see each other probably once a week. She'd be down in Seattle. And, we stayed in touch, just dealing with like stuff around the studios and whatnot.
Basically just knowing each other as colleagues for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then about a year after that, she left that gym. I had already left, started working for Orange Theory, found out that she had left there. And I was like, look, you should come work at Orange Theory, because Orange Theory is an awesome company to work for. Mm. And so she came and worked for me, and I was her boss for probably about a year and 5 months or so.
Well, because that's when I met the two of you, when you were Elaine's boss.
Yes, because right? we were in the ILP at that time. Mm-hmm. Like I think we met you when we were in the ILP.
So for those of you listening, the ILP is a leadership program through a company called Landmark. So yes. That is how Rusty, Elaine, and I met, is through a leadership program from Landmark Education.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I started with Orange Theory in February, and then he was promoted to be another studio manager of the Ballard location in February of the following year. So it's just about a year that we worked together.
Yeah, because I remember when Rusty got promoted because another good friend of ours worked at that location as well.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh, now I didn't realize that all these people that I know each other in all of these different ways. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see, right around the time I left the Linwood studio to go to Ballard is when Elaine ended up getting divorced. And shortly after that, since I was no longer her boss, and we'd gotten along ridiculously well, and we'd gone through the same leadership program together, and neither one of us would have made it through that program without the other one, because every time one of us wanted to quit, the other one was like, nope, you're not quitting, you're too good for that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I literally would not have made it through there without her, and I don't think she would have made it through there without my support as well.
Yeah, well, and also like being a third party observer of, well, and at that time, because when I met you, you two were friends, colleagues, and it was even clear at that time how connected the two of you were.
Yeah.
And it like, what you're saying makes absolute sense, because just even from an outsider's point of view, it was so clear how connected the two of you were and how supportive the two of you were for each other at that time even.
Yeah, everybody thought we were a couple.
I did. I thought you were a couple. I asked somebody else.
Yeah. So the other thing too, as all of this was happening, is not only were Rusty and I very synergistic, and people asked constantly if we were a couple. We just kind of would look at each other like, no, but for everybody else, they were like, are you sure? And we've always had an incredible connection. I mean, there was a lot that went down with the other company that although we weren't like working together, we really became each other's lifelines through all of those spaces, and then as he said, in the leadership program, we were kind of essential to keep each other, It's so intensive. And as he was being transferred out, I was being promoted to assistant manager of the Bellevue location, and then ultimately to my own location in Belrad. The biggest thing through all of or one of the big factors for all this is that I was married at the time. I had been married for 26 years and I have 4 children. And it became clear through my work and like self-development that really, in order to honor my ex-husband, who is an incredible, amazing human being, was that we were really on 2 different trajectories. And I described it oftentimes as being like we were firing arrows in hopes to hit each other's targets of what lit each other up, what, was important to each other. And it's like we would cross momentarily and we would almost hit, but it was never like this connection. And, I really didn't see like there was nothing wrong with my marriage from the standpoint of we never fought in 26 years or anything like that. But there was definitely like not a connection. And ultimately really to honor him and to honor my own journey, it was in a space of like really loving him enough to let him go so that he could find somebody that really like he was in sync with. And so I was committed that not only were we going to complete that marriage powerfully and leave us both in a space where another relationship was possible, but that the 4 kids would also be left in a space. And out of that conversation, I was committed that my kids, my youngest 2 at the time were 12 and 13, that they actually didn't experience that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but that they didn't experience that kind of Gumby experience where they're like here and then they're there and they're there. So what ultimately ended up happening is my ex-husband bought a townhome or put an offer in on a townhome in Linwood and sent me the link because we had a commitment to be within less than a mile of each other. So it was just a different bus for my girls to go back and forth between the houses. But ultimately what happened is we actually ended up buying the house across the street from him. So my ex-husband and my 4 children live across the street from me. And the girls are with us 50% of the time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
and that was never going to happen in the realm of what's possible,
right?
Because I wanted nothing to do with owning a home. Like that was never something that I wanted to do. I had all sorts of stories about what it meant to be a homeowner, and that it was just, a scam to get people to like spend way more money on housing than they really need to, and et cetera. And I just didn't want to be responsible for taking care of a house. And it was through like our relationship, cause Elaine was no longer like, she, no longer really had a house. She didn't really have a place to live. And she was looking at possibly, getting an apartment, like somewhere near where her ex-husband and kids were going to be. And, through the course of her marriage, like, there wasn't really anything credit building in her name. So she didn't really have a credit score to be able to get a house. I had a great credit score, but I didn't have savings or anything to, do any kind of down payment on a house. And just through conversations, it sort of became clear, like, she's somebody that I could partner with in something like that. So it's like, well, let's combine my credit score and your down payment, and we can look at getting a house, and we can both live there. And,
yeah.
And
yeah,
then,
and and I just want to highlight at this point in time in the story, like the all the moving pieces for everyone. It's like, okay, so what was happening was, Elaine is going through a divorce. She has 4 kids. She's been married 26 years. She comes up to her husband and she's like, hey, I think that we're moving in different directions, and I really want, my commitment is that I'm trying to remember the exact words that you used, but like you stated your commitment for how you wanted it to go to him. Yes. And how you wanted your kids to be left inside of that situation. He put a down payment on a townhome. You're like, okay, I'm going to find a place that is within, this amount. But then you found the townhome that was across the street. And then you and Rusty decided to put down this down payment together on this townhome, even though Rusty didn't want to buy a house in the first place. And Rusty, also, you were with your other partner at that time. Yep. So y'all were in a polyamorous relationship as well. And so it's like, all of these different moving parts of what was happening in both of your lives, and the fact that you were able to do it in such a peaceful, harmonious way that most people would be just like completely overwhelmed by. Like that's like getting divorced after being married for 26 years and having 4 kids alone is really overwhelming for people. Like that's a big deal. Yeah. And there's a lot of different ways that you can be about that. Not to mention, to add in, that's like you now have this other partner who you so connect with, like synergistically, and like just those 2 factors, getting a divorce and having a partner right away, that's overwhelming for people. But to add in that that partner also has another partner. Now you're in a polyamorous relationship. Okay, but now you're going to buy a house together. It's like, oh my God, all of that is like, all of those things just individually are enough to overwhelm someone. And the way that you all handled it was with such grace and harmony and love for every single person involved. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
It was crazy too. I think the biggest key that you'll see show up, there's like a theme that goes through our relationship, is we really come from a standpoint of creating it, and that it all is possible out of a conversation. That's how I started with my ex-husband. Is I was like, look, this is, once we mutually agreed that divorce was, going to be the direction we went, I said, look, I know divorce is like, there is a very well-known agreement that divorces are, tough, and they are contentious, and parenting plans are tough, and, and it's almost like a norm. Like it's such a normal
it's like normal.
It's
like, oh, you're going through divorce. Okay, now every single person, you hear the word divorce, and all of a sudden you hear hard, tough, stressful, heartbreaking, like that's
contentious,
totally.
Well, that's, your experience, because you had to go to the parenting classes.
Oh yeah.
And do you want to share a little bit about what that looked like and what that opened up for you?
Yeah. So part of when you have children in the state of Washington, you're required to go to these parenting classes. And this had been such a normal conversation for me from the standpoint of like, I'm so committed that it's going this way and that it doesn't have to look, like this horrible battleground, if you will. And it became normal, really. And so it wasn't something out of the ordinary. And I went to this parenting class and was just
like the harmonious standpoint became normal for you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so I, show up at this parenting class and I'm sitting there in the parenting class and it is like, these people were like, my heart was breaking because these people were venomous towards their exes.
Yeah.
And they're actually having to tell people in this class, don't say bad things about your ex to your kids, like really things that were just mind blowing to me.
Right.
And if I ever had a moment where I was wavering, like this is taking, a lot of mental space to continually just recreate who my ex was for me and who he is as the father of my children and, the future we were going to create together. Like I just had to refer back to that parenting class of just the toxicity, if you will, of how heartbroken and, how little resources these people had, going through this process.
Yeah.
And to just be able to have that conversation and be able to create that out in the world, but then also, of like what was possible, like this is how it's going. And it got so normal. I forget now, and I think Rusty does a little bit too, that what we consider normal life of my girls running back and forth between the two houses and having, hour-long phone calls with my ex-husband, creating what the future looks like, and that it's just harmonious. It's such like breathing in, breathing out for us. I sometimes forget to the level that isn't the norm, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have nothing about her having conversations with her ex-husband. Like I know that in some marriages, when people are in contact with their exes, it's a point of insecurity or contention or something. And it doesn't even enter my space that there's anything at all like for me to like deal with or be concerned about or anything. And one of the things that we're always committed to is that, in all of this, because, and thank you for really kind of putting all that together of like what the normal experience of each of those things is, let alone all of those things together.
Yeah.
Because, part of where we come from is that, everything happens with a sense of freedom and ease. And so, it doesn't even end up feeling like it's overwhelming or that, like anything requires a tremendous amount of effort to create. The whole process of buying the house, part of why I didn't want to buy a house is because I would see people going through the house buying process and it looked so stressful. And, there's you put an offer in and that offer, maybe gets accepted or maybe it gets rejected. And then the inspection happens and, you get your hopes up and then something's wrong with the house. And, now you got to go back to square one and then you're in escrow for like a month and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then you can't spend any money, and there's all these things. I was like, I don't want to do that. That seems awful.
That sounds terrible.
It does. It absolutely sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And, when we heard about the house, one of my sales associates at my studio happened to be a real estate broker. So I called her and she got us in to see the apartment like the next day or the house the next day. We put an offer in on, that was Sunday. We put an offer in on Tuesday?
Monday.
We put an offer in on Monday. It was accepted on Wednesday. We had an inspection on Friday. And 2 weeks later, we closed on the house. So, or maybe it was 3 weeks later. I don't know, but
about 3 weeks later.
But the whole process was just so smooth, and it was like, well, if it was like that, like I would totally buy a house, which is good because I just did.
Good to know.
Yeah, and it's just it's been it's been great. You know, and it was one of the things that we noticed in our friendship, you know, is that everything just felt easy. You know, it's never felt like there was work. It never felt like I had to be any certain way, or you know, or not be a certain way in order to be like accepted in the relationship. And I know she's experienced the same thing and felt the same way.
Yeah.
And that's unique. I mean, I've never been in a relationship where you know, some aspect of like, well, if I'm not this way, then it's, you know, not going to go well. And so I gotta hide this, or I gotta pretend to be this, or, you know, I gotta dial this back.
Make sure you don't say this, or
yeah. It was like, you know, my marriage, I spent 12 years walking on eggshells, you know, and that doesn't work at all. And so, you know, I vowed I would never be in a relationship like that again. And, you know, I didn't necessarily know how to create that. And, you know,
so how much would you say of your relationship is like that natural easiness that you've always found with each other, and coming from actually being intentional about creating? How much would you say is like of each one?
I would say it's probably, I don't know, not half and half. I mean, there has always been an easy, you know, a simplicity and a synergy where he, you know, leaves off, I'm right there, and vice versa. And from the first time we met each other, a lot of it was that it was really clear that we both had a respect for each other. And in spite of circumstances, we just listened to each other, you know, really as like extraordinary human beings. You know, not as a pedestal where it was a setup to fall. It was just like, you know, we both have stumbled and, you know, bumped our knees on the rocks and everything, but overarchingly, we know who we are and what we're committed to. So there's a lot of that. And in that space, it does really create a listening, if you will, that is a space of safety and creation for each other, you know, and for those around us too. You know, that is another huge component of all of this, is that, you know, Rusty went to his partner at the time that he had been with for a long time, you know, and created that, you know, in their open relationship, that he would like to date me also. And we hadn't been dating for very long when we were both in a conversation with his partner, you know, asking her like, look, this opportunity's come up to buy a house. I mean, how many people start a relationship and a month later they're about.
Right. And you and Rusty, you and your other partner had been dating for how long at that point?
About 4 years at that point, I think.
So it was like a serious relationship.
Yeah. It was open from the get-go. But neither one of us had really like done that. Like, you know, some one-offs here and there, but you know, neither one of us had really looked at, you know, actually having another partner. Even though the option was there. And Elaine had been friends with my other partner for about that time, had actually been her personal trainer and done meal plans for her, and they're still like really great friends. So
it was really that, you know, we were creating a new definition of what a family looked like, right? So Rusty and his partner moved in, and I moved in. And then my girls, you know, are with us, you know, 50% of the time too. So, you know, there was really acknowledging, you know, that it goes without saying that could have been a potential minefield, you know, what shows up as far as like everything that's involved in, you know, having a healthy poly relationship and making sure everybody is heard and validated and loved, you know, and honored, quite frankly, you know, in that space. and what that looks like on an ongoing basis, right? Not to be Pollyanna, there was definitely times when we really had to kind of sort some stuff out.
Yep.
And I think that I'm gonna cut you off for just a second, just to highlight that, because I think you said that twice now, where it's not, the first time you said pedestal, and then the second time you said Pollyanna, and that it isn't like that. It isn't where it's like, oh, like this person is so amazing and wonderful and perfect, and like almost having them be like they're infallible.
Yeah.
Where it's not that you see your partner like that. It's not that you see Rusty like that. It's that you see him as a powerful human being who can handle whatever he needs to handle, and that you can create from whatever space. And so it is looking at it from a realistic perspective, but also a anything's possible perspective, and not like a, oh, it's going to be fine no matter what, da 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 da. And then again, with the whole Pollyanna thing, it's like what you highlighted as well is that, it's not that you didn't it's not like there wasn't things to work out. It's not like, there wasn't like tough conversations to have. It's not that, people's feelings didn't get hurt at any point in time. It's that you both were able to come from a place of honoring people, respecting everyone, listening to people, keeping that overarching intention of honor, respect, connection, love, so I like, one of the things that I think is what has your relationship be so inspiring is not that it's perfect all the time, but that regardless of what happens, you can create anything that you want.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that in every conversation and every interaction that everybody's left bigger for the interaction.
So I want you to say a little bit more about people being left bigger, and then I kind of want to get back into your story where we left off.
Yeah. Coming from a place where, in a conversation, like no matter what's going on, where nothing's wrong, and nothing's a problem, it's that, people are, they want what they want in a situation. And it's all perfect. It's all okay. And what there is just to have a conversation about, what can be done and what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. But if you operate from, like you said, that place where everybody is loved, honored, nobody comes away from the situation feeling like they weren't heard or respected or feeling less than or belittled. Yeah. Like they're,
it sounds like that everyone is left knowing that they have a say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that they're cared about, and that they're loved, and that they are respected.
Yeah. So it's like, there's never a time where it's like, it's my way or the highway, or, if you don't agree with me, then you're stupid, or, just like a complete contradiction to how you two operate. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's never, as we're having this conversation, I see a lot of what's like not part of our relationship, or our relationship, with my kids, or Rusty's other partner at the time, is that a blame, like a conversation around blame, like they did this, or they said this, or they are doing this. It's really just what works, right? And that translates even down to like the daily things, in that we have a commitment. We are so fortunate, that we created a space that we were able to have this house, and, all the conversations that led to that. Like, we really do want to honor and respect the fact that we both are first-time homeowners, and so there's what works, and having a cluttered house doesn't work for us, and so there's conversations and agreements, even down to with my girls, there's not rules. We don't operate from a rule-based household. We sat down, we're like, okay, we're getting a new couch. What doesn't work is having food on the new couch that spills.
Right.
What does work is that really all of us are going to sit down and eat in front of the TV, like popcorn or ice cream or something. So
right.
what can we create that has all of that work?
Mm-hmm.
Leaving the dishes on the coffee table when you're done, not picking, there's nothing wrong there. It just doesn't work. Right. And so that's really where we come from in those conversations, no matter what it is, whether it's something that would be considered big, like a relationship change, or if it's just what works in the household.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's just regardless of what situation.
It's an agreement-based conversation. Yeah.
I love that. And I've had, and you as you have listened to my podcast, I had a whole episode about the difference between boundaries, boundaries, agreements, and rules. And
yes.
So that's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know that it's actually been distinguished yet, but her daughters are 13 and a half and 14 and a half. Mm. So that actually can give some context to the relationship and how that works. Because it's a very different context if they're, 3 and 4.
Totally.
No.
Yeah. So early teenagers. Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're awesome. They're so great.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have amazing parents and I'm like,
yes. So I'll take this. I know what you're So part of the agreement is that I really, first off, I had said I was never dating again, or at least not from the standpoint, maybe not never dating, but I really am very protective of my girls, not in a smothering way, but just, I didn't want a revolving door of and here's the flavor of the week. Maybe that works for some people. I knew it wouldn't work for me. And so the fact that I was introducing, they had both met Rusty and his partner, at different occasions. So they were familiar with them. And what we created is that we just had a different dynamic of what family looked like. And that as long as everybody was respected, in other words, them being snippy or, what people would call back talking, to the adults in the household, that wasn't going to work. And I had no expectations from the standpoint, and I know you had a whole podcast sidebar on expectations, but seriously, I didn't have anything like Rusty should be this way or his partner should be this way with them. No, there was literally look, you're a fantastic human being. You're a fantastic role model. They treat you with respect. You treat them with respect. And I really left it in an open space for them to create whatever that relationship would look like. And what showed up is that both my daughters have very unique relationships with Rusty and how they interact with him and the level of play and fun and teasing, and how they interact with the other thing too, which I don't know if this is jumping ahead. Rusty and his other partner ended their relationship a few months back. Totally amicable. In fact, sorry, that she still, I just totally hit the microphone. She still lives with us as a roommate. Mm-hmm. And before the whole virus thing, she was in the process of moving out, but we'll get to that. But just so that that's distinguished. And so now that we're together so many hours, there's been new conversations to take on, homeschooling and what does that look like? Right. And it's just constantly a creation. Sometimes it's a day-to-day creation. Sometimes it's an hour-to-hour creation. So,
yeah. And I definitely want to get to that for sure, because I think that's really important. That was the other thing that I wanted to hit is you set this great foundation for your relationship, and now stuff has really changed because of COVID-19, and so I really want to get into that as well. But okay, so where we left off in the story was now the story you had just moved in and you're now homeowners together, and your other partner is there, you're there, Rusty's there, your girls are there 50% of the time, and so continue with the story up until today.
Okay.
So synopsis. So we went through the holidays, we went through summer, the holidays, everything. And that was actually really fun. Just from the standpoint of really seeing how what we which is going to carry over into the COVID-19 conversation. Ironically, I just saw that is that like I had my normal, my normal was very filled with traditions around the holidays that had actually shown up as expectations. Like, this is the way Thanksgiving goes. This is the way Christmas goes. And there was quite a few times I was kind of taken back from the standpoint of like, what you mean, Rusty, why wouldn't you do that? Not like something was wrong, but that was so ingrained, 2.5 decades
right.
of,
of how
going
it goes
a certain way.
Yeah.
That it was in a large part kind of shocking to me to, actually embrace like, I know that my way wasn't the one and only, but really that there was not really a lot of traditions, from the standpoint of where Rusty was coming from. And so we kind of looked at I'm like, well, this is really my kids look forward to this. And so we're like, okay, well, let's keep that one. And then we started, I got to introduce both of Rusty and his partner to like some of the things that we've done for years. And then we created new traditions. We went to like enchant as a family. So, the 3 adults and the 2 girls, and just really started, we went to a movie on Christmas Day, after everybody kind of came back together and, really just, it became fun. And the distinct thing that was there is that there was no right way, right? There's not a way like it had to be. And there was no perfect way it had to be. It was really just like, okay, we're in the sandbox. What can we play with? Let's pick up this toy. Okay. That's an interesting toy, but it really doesn't do anything for us.
Yeah.
And okay, but the toy's not bad and wrong. It's just what was, right? And so then I'm like, oh, well, I do pajamas every night, like Christmas Eve. And so I went shopping with the girls and, Rusty's other partner, and we just went out for a girls thing and we picked up pajamas and Rusty was kind of like, really, but we did that on Christmas Eve.
I don't do pajamas.
Yeah. It was just something fun. Like the girls kept asking, are we going to get pajamas on Christmas Eve? Like they were expecting it and it was fun. And, it was just great to be able to create, without an attachment, like that, no, this is the way it's been and this is the way it's going. Like, don't even take it up with me, right? But more just like, okay, this is what I've done in the past. Does it work? Does it not work? Okay, fun. Like, let's create something new. So that kind of gets us through like the holidays, and stuff. And then towards the beginning of the year, I'll let you take this part here. Rusty and his other partner, like we're starting to see.
Oh yeah. So, what we had started to see is, with my other partner, our lives were just going in very different directions. She's younger, she's an artist. She loves like hiking is her world, hiking, camping, all that stuff. I mean, she's very ambitious in terms of what she wants to do with her life, start an artist commune, live in a yurt out in, with a bunch of other yurts around it and have other artists and things like that around it.
She has like a clear vision of how she wants her life to go.
Absolutely. Totally.
Yeah. And she's super talented and like she's so together with, what she's up to and all that. And it's just so not like where my life is headed.
It's not, you have a vision of how you want your life to go and that's not it.
Yeah, exactly. And we love each other very much. I mean, she's a phenomenal human being. She was like the perfect relationship for me coming out of, 12 years of really difficult marriage. And, like it was a different kind of ease in our relationship, like no expectations of really anything. And it was a lot of fun. And it wasn't, like neither one of us was really going to be able to build a future together. Mm-hmm. And so
in the way that you both wanted to.
Yeah.
Given the directions that you individually saw your life going.
Yeah. And the way things had been going, like we weren't even seeing each other. I mean, we live in the same house and we might see each other like 2 hours a week.
Oh, wow. Really?
Like literally it was that much with everything that like what she was doing with her work and what I was doing, between working and, being in assisting at Landmark and all that, there was no commonality. And so we just had a conversation that, you know, what was really going to make sense was, you know, for us to, you know, end the romantic part of our relationship. You know, we're still friends. It's still like, we still love each other tremendously. You know, the irony is that about 3 weeks later, all of this happened, and now we've like,
now we're in
the three of us have spent nothing but time together.
Life as we know it completely changed.
Life as we know it completely changed.
Right.
You know, and it still doesn't change the fact that, you know, in a long-term, you know, space, you know, there is a freedom now for her to go like really create whatever she wants to create with whoever she wants to create it with.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about, you know, am I being left behind, or, you know, what's that going to be?
Yeah. And again, I'm going to interrupt you because one of the themes that I see keep being brought up.
Keeps.
Yeah, keep showing up.
Keep
showing up. Like English. So one of the things that keeps showing up is the seamlessness in which you seem to transition relationships, and it's something that I've said on the podcast before, but this really beautifully, the way that you operate highlights what I've been saying, is that polyamory, and really you can translate this into anything outside of polyamory, but that it's really the ability to have each relationship be fully self-expressed. And that can be very fluid as well. You know, a self-expression of your relationship at one point in time, where you can use, you know, Rusty, your former partner in this example, where it's like the fullest expression of your relationship at one time was you're open, but it's more the possibility of being open. It's like, okay, now the fullest expression of your relationship looks like actually seeing other people, and that's actually happening. Okay, now the fullest self-expression of your relationship is that you're great friends. You know, like you said it so perfectly, the romantic part of your relationship came to a conclusion. And it can be a seamless transition. Yeah. Where it's like, it's just the fullest expression of the relationship at the time that works for both people, that works for all people involved. And I just think that that's so beautiful. Cool. Okay, so now you're in COVID-19 world. We're all in COVID-19 world, and we're at home all the time with the people that we live with. So what's new now? Like, how are you navigating that now? What are some of the challenges that you faced? How are you, like, how's it going? How's that going?
Well, it's going tremendously well. I mean, we've been like, our last day of work was March 16th.
Okay. And today is
May
2nd.
I'm like, what day?
And we're looking at it'll probably be mid-June before we're back at work.
Yeah.
You know, at the earliest, just given the timetables. You know, we're fortunate that, you know, we're financially okay. So, you know, we're not, I mean, I know some people are being hit like really, really hard. And so there's that level of stress that they're dealing with that we don't have to deal with, which is great. It's been really interesting, you know, surfing social media and seeing all of the memes, you know, of wives burying their husbands, and
because people
you know
are
what I mean,
like cause of death.
Yeah,
you know, like
gotcha.
Death, you know, COVID-19.
You know, and like, you know, the safe things for men to say to their wives during this time, and then the unsafe things, and
I just had to look at the feeling really quick.
Out loud eye roll. For those on just the podcast, that's the out loud eye roll.
Yeah. If you heard something go clunk, it was Elizabeth's eyes. But, you know, we're looking at this stuff going, I get it conceptually, you know, because I've been there. I think we all have at one time or another, or we know.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I roll my eyes, I've absolutely been there. So
yeah. But it's so not the reality of our relationship at all. I mean, we've been like, since March 16th, we've spent almost literally 24/7 in each other's company and space, with the exception of, there's a couple hours.
It was 1 hour I left.
Yeah, there's 1 hour she went shopping with her daughters, to go get stuff, and I stayed home. The rest of the time, we go to Costco, or if we go shopping, which we try not to do very often, but when we do, we go together.
I think one of the recommendations that I heard, I don't know if this isn't like a rule or like a state mandate or anything like that, but one of the things we were talking about before we started the podcast was where we've been getting our information from. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying that I've been trying to listen to like different scientific information. Like I've been trying to stay away from the media, and I've just been trying to like listen to scientific information. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I have heard is that a recommendation is to only go to the grocery store like every 10 days, like if you can.
Yep.
Like
that's what we've been trying to do is we go once and try to do all the shopping for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
A meal plan, and off the meal plan I do a shopping list, and then I look at like what would be fun, because you are like, there is dealing with the reality of your home a lot, and there might be munchies or like cravings and stuff. Right. And so, or, I just saw this recipe, there's nothing but time right now. So
right.
And so kind of looking ahead and planning, because in that 2 weeks, we have the girls and then we don't. So like, what are they going to want? And then out of that, we put our mask on and get the sanitizing wipes and everything and whatnot, and out we go, and we do really knock it out in about a day. And then it's a really one-off that we're back at the store. It's like, so we forgot something major, that just didn't get on the list. And then we try and make sure that we've, at that point, are responsible for looking at other things that could be, maybe the milk is not quite out, for example, but if we're going to go out, we might as well make it productive, so we're not finding something else the next day that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, my general question, this is I always ask really dramatic questions to myself to in my own like mental games to have me stay on track, but my question to myself is, what would be absolutely tragic if I forgot?
Yeah. Some days that might be vodka,
right?
Some days.
Like, and it's more like, what would if I forgot this thing, then what would I come home and be like, gosh, really? Okay, got it, forgot that. Yep.
Yeah.
So I try to write those down. Whatever elicits that reaction, I write that down. And sometimes, yes, it is wine or whiskey or vodka.
Or something.
Some sort of alcoholic beverage.
Or ice cream.
Some sort of adult beverage.
Or I've been doing sexy snacks. Mitzi Cole came on the podcast. I forget which episode Mitzi was on season 1.
Yes.
But yeah, and Mitzi talks about sexy snacks. And so I've actually, since that episode, because she made me a sexy snack for that podcast. And so since then I've been doing sexy snacks. And so we've been like super fancy at our house and making like charcuterie plates. And so
I love it.
Nice.
So when we go out, we like buy like fun cheese or, and
we've done that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And like, we've been buying these like, green olive, like garlic, like the stuffed green olives. Yeah. We've been totally buying those. Yep.
Yeah. Like fun things, right?
Yeah, just to make it fun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, might as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what else you got to do?
Right. Oh, that's so great. Okay, well, and then so has there anything, what are like your agreements that you have now in the house with COVID?
Oh my gosh. I don't think we really have.
All right, have you created anything, or
not really. I mean, there's agreements about, if people do go out or when they come back, like, they immediately change clothes, and their clothes that they were wearing go into the washing machine immediately, and they take a shower. And when we come back, we take our shoes off outside and spray the soles with bleach.
Awesome.
But like and everybody wears masks when they go out.
I bring wipes. So
yeah, but I mean, like, we only really have like new agreements in and around the, trying to keep everybody safe from the, from the virus. Not really so much in terms of like inside the house. Everything's just kind of been smooth and seamless.
It goes back to that space of one of the things we're both committed to is that we're a soft place and a safe place for those around us, and so sometimes what that looks like is just having the freedom to, because here we are, like he said, we're with, his other partner, she's our roommate, and they just technically went through a breakup. Right. And that really speaks to who they are as human beings and what they're committed to in the light that, and joy that she brings, because the three of us are together a lot, and she's in, she's doing university studies, and so sometimes that safe space just simply looks like, she puts her headphones in and studies for hours. Sometimes it's that she needs to jump on and do her dance videos or her yoga, or, she goes upstairs to paint and we binge watch something, and that there's really nothing, wrong, and that we're just in communication, like, okay, I'm doing dinner now, or I'm doing dinner in an hour, and it's that's what it looks like right now to have that safe space. Or as we've dealt with, like she also works at Starbucks and is taking catastrophe pay. So she's not leaving very much, because of that. And then there's the conversation, like she's very aware I'm considered high risk because of my autoimmune diseases and MS and things. So she opted to take that. I didn't ask her, Rusty didn't ask her to take the catastrophe pay, but she had a concern about bringing what she was bringing home to me. And so here we are all these hours, and it is really just like, okay, well, we're going to sit down and have a movie night. Like, what snacks do we want? And that's what the safe space looks like, and there have been like emotional, she got frustrated with studies and, was in tears, and we were like, okay, what's going to make the difference for you? Do you need something to drink? Do you want a warm light? Like, do you need a hug? That's the safe space. And then, I was confronted with like, how am I going to be, online parent from the standpoint of like the schooling, and what does that look like? Does it look like
because her daughters are completing their schooling online through Meadowdale, and they still have they have assignments and Zoom meetings and things like that, and that, especially for teenagers, can be really hard to manage, trying to do online school. Because they would much rather not be doing that, and it doesn't feel to them like they should be in school. And so we have had to actually create some agreements around what their days look like when they're here, as far as them getting their schoolwork done, and when they can be on their phones and when they have to be like doing their work, and how much they should be getting done and not getting done, and how much they're managing and how much, Elaine has to manage as far as like them being productive. So we have had to put some agreements in place around that. Yeah. So those are some agreements that we have created.
What are agreements that are in place, and how are they working?
As far as like with my girls?
Yeah.
It's, I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record for you. It's an ongoing conversation. And what showed up is that my ex and I are like committed that it's not like one like day and night between our households. So I actually went to them and said, okay, well, it's clear I'm going to be around a lot more than I've ever been. They're not in school, because normally when I'd have them, and obviously when they were with my ex too, it's really that you only have them for about 2 to 3 hours a day, when they get home from school, by the time they do dinner and their activities and everything. And now here we are all day, every day. Right. And so I said to them, I was like, let's get together. And the four of us had a meeting in the park, so we weren't in his space or in my space, and just said, look, we're committed that you get to finish your school powerfully, and we don't want to micromanage you. Like, nobody, whether they're an adult or a child, likes to be asked, by a boss or a parent or an authority figure,
that never works.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Is your homework done? Have you done anything? Why are you on your phone? Like, nobody likes that. And so I said, look, what we know has to happen is you guys need to complete these parameters. So that can look any sort of ways. Do you want a reminder? If so, how often do you want that reminder? Do you want to say, okay, there's no phone time between 10 and 2, and that's your school time, and so we just kind of went back and forth creating it. And in that same space, we're like, okay, so they chose that they wanted one reminder a day, and they wanted to be responsible for setting their own alarms for their Zoom meetings. And, Rusty agreed that for the most part, he was here as kind of like a assist and a tutor, but not really taking on any sort of the like managing of them. Right. And then what was that?
More of a resource.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. And a support for me, like, what do I need to have them win? And then we said, look, we're going to agree to this. And if it doesn't work, we're having another conversation. Not like anything's wrong, but for example, my oldest daughter, all of a sudden at 1:00 on Thursday, we're sitting at the table and she's like, oh my gosh, I have a Zoom meeting. And I said, whoa, time out here. Like, the agreement was that you were setting your alarms for the Zoom meeting, that you did not want me to manage that. She's like, oh, well, I meant to. And I said, okay, well, now is not the time to deal with this broken agreement. We need to go back and revisit that. So does that look like me setting alarms for you? And so there was a whole nother conversation that arose out of that, and then it was like, look, you actually have, what's is everything's due by Friday night. Right. And so if you choose to do it Thursday and Friday all day, great. We won't say anything to you Monday through Wednesday,
right.
As long as it all gets done.
Right. And then we're assessing, and I'm in conversation with my ex of like, okay, what did you find worked? Right. Do we need to shut off their phones? Do we need to, okay, well, this worked in this case and this didn't work. So now we're going to go back and we're going to have a new conversation. And empowering all of them, my ex, my girls, Rusty, and supporting me, of what actually is possible. And it's going to be ongoing.
Yeah, no, I love that. And thank you for answering my question. And I know that it does sound like a broken record to you, because like you said, like, this is just your life and this is how you operate. And this is, what works for you. So like for you, it's like, yeah, this is just like what we do. But it really highlights so well the difference between agreements and rules, because agreements really do come from a conversation. And what works and what doesn't work. And then it's fluid, like it's an open thing. Like it's not a rule is hard and fast and like, this is how it has to be. And nobody's going to say boo about it or else consequences.
Yeah.
But agreements.
Compliance.
Or what?
Like it's like a direction or a dictating, like this is how it is. And there is compliance or non-compliance and then consequences.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Or reward, right. And so, so having those agreements, like, especially with your teenagers, where it's like, they also get a say so in what works for them as well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you as a parent get a say so in what works as well, and get to hold them accountable for, what works, and they get to hold themselves accountable. It's just like, it's just so awesome. It's so awesome that is what you do, and that is such a great example of why agreements work better than rules.
Yeah.
Because then everyone is agreeing to them, and then you can have those check-ins like, oh wow, this actually isn't working. We made this agreement and it's not working how we wanted it to. So what's actually going to work? What's a new thing? Because I think sometimes where people get stuck is that there has to be the way to do it. Like, this is the right way to do it. This is the wrong way to do it, but if you take that away and you just talk about like, okay, this is the objective is that they aren't micromanaged and everything gets done on time.
Yeah.
That's the objective. What are the agreements around that? And that it can look any way. And I think that is one of the things that makes your relationship so inspiring and so powerful, is that it does have that, what gives it that power is the fluidity and is the ongoing conversation, and it is the, you know, what's working now, or it is like the fun. Like, it was so awesome to hear you talk about like the fun, just like, yeah, we're just gonna go out and buy like fun snacks, or, you know, like, it's okay, like, we're gonna, you know, watch TV at this time, we're gonna binge watch Netflix, like that, it's okay, like, it's, you know. And so yeah, I just, the fluidity of it is what makes your relationship so great and so strong. Just like the ability to just like be with reality and just like roll with it and keep going and create, you know, ongoingly is really, really beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think the biggest piece of it is that we both come from a place where like everything is a point of view. You know, and it's not that like either one of us has a way that things are or a way that they should be. You know, and that like I know when I find myself starting to, you know, like doubt things or think that, well, that's not how it should go, like I'm actually able to catch it and say, okay, well, that's where I'm at right now, but that's not how it actually is. So let me check in and have a conversation with you know, Elaine about like, well, what's actually happening for her, and, you know, get that where she's coming from is just as valid as wherever I'm at. And then I'm able to actually just give up whatever point of view I'm coming from and look at, okay, like what's actually going to work to, you know, honor our agreement to love, honor, and cherish one another. And it creates a really, really incredible space where things that were not possible actually become possible.
I love it. It's beautiful. And it really is. You said it so beautifully, where it's giving up your own point of view for the greater, you know, relationship, right? Like the greater intention of the relationship. I love that. Is there anything else that you want to say, or any closing advice? Because I feel like I could just talk to the two of you for hours and hours and hours and just record it and have it be its like own mini show, like own mini like spin-off of my podcast.
So
just,
great.
like, keep talking about like different examples and what you do and how you communicate. Like, it's really amazing to talk to a couple like yourselves, to have as an example of the communication that's possible, of the agreements that are possible, of the mentality, just like the mentality that you have about what is possible in your relationship. So I feel like I could talk to you forever, and I will, because I love you and we're friends, and you're stuck with me forever.
If you want to start a second podcast, you know, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
You can call my people.
Have my people call your people.
Yeah.
So,
but is there anything else that you wanted to say in conclusion to?
Yeah, I think it's important to share one last piece, because, you know, we're operating from, you know, what's possible that we didn't think was possible or even know was possible.
yeah.
And that is that actually, as of last Tuesday, we are engaged. And that was never, ever going to happen. Like, I was real clear coming out of my last marriage that I was never getting married again.
That was a bad idea.
It was terrible.
Hell freezes over.
Yes. I don't know if everybody's feet got cold last Tuesday.
But hell froze over.
Hell did freeze over. Yeah, and you know, and part of it was from this, you know, whole lockdown thing of spending all this time together, and every day just gets better and better. And you know, just dealing with, you know, proximity and dealing with, you know, potential financial stress, you know, who knows how all this is going to go. And just like really being there for each other, and like that 100% safe space. It was like, well, yeah, like this is this is happening. And so we had some conversations and worked through some stuff, and I was like, let's do this.
Bought some rings.
Yeah. I will say, just to bring a little bit more distinction, is that I also was coming from a place of, okay, I've been married for 26 years. I mean, I was married at 18, so pretty much my whole adult life I've been married. And I come from a background of a wedding planner. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you will, and the drama. And I was like, I don't have any need for that in my life. So I was really in the camp of no, not ever, type thing. And to continue the conversation succinctly, is that really in that safe space that we created, what had started to show up with all this time to think was that I had started to create an idea of like what the perfect partner looks like. Like the perfect partner needs to be up at a certain time and needs to be cooking this, huge breakfast, and then have the sexy snacks, if you will, ready for lunch. And then, and then cook this huge dinner. And then I was doing these, baking pavlova and like trying all these new things, which had gone from an expression and something I loved to like a have to. But I never checked in with him to see if he had any expectations. I just created this idea and then was operating from it. And so I was starting to experience some stress and like, I just can't keep up at this pace, like always in the kitchen, always taking care of like this. It wasn't fun anymore. And so last Monday, what had happened is like when I started to see that was what was showing up, like I was able to go to him and say, this is where I'm like bumping up against things. And he was just so safe. He's like, no, I have no expectation. Like, no, like you don't need to be cooking, it's great. I love it. Like it's but there's nothing.
She's a good cook.
There was nothing over there. Thank you. And so then
you are a good cook. I've had some of your food. Your cooking is amazing.
Oh, dude, she can bake too, man. I don't know if you've had any of her baked goods, but they are choice.
That's a whole nother podcast. We can do cooking with Elaine. No, Elaine and Elizabeth. But I went to him, which felt really scary, in a lot of ways from my perspective. And he's so safe. And in that space of like actually distinguishing that, he had some idea of like that I had, expectations or like something that he was bringing to the relationship was or was not going to be okay. And because we do operate from that, we are the soft spot and the safe place. We were able to like really get a lot of things out of the space. And Tuesday morning, what showed up is I actually said, well, there is one more conversation that I really am honestly quite scared to bring to you. And it's the big M word, right? Like I had moved from no, not ever to, I could see that happening to, that sounds like a good idea to, wow, we're together all the time. And it literally like falling in love with falling in love every day. That does sound like unicorns and rainbows, but really that's what's, happening, and not being afraid of that. And his response was, honestly, I have to tell you,
I've actually been looking at rings for the last couple of days. Can I show you what I've been looking at? Which I was amazed by. Like it wasn't something I made a choice about. I just found myself like looking online for rings that I thought she might like, and was like, oh my God, I'm actually like considering this. And that was so not even in the realm of what I thought was possible. And then, we just had a conversation, and I looked at her and I said, Elaine Dewey, will you marry me? And she said what she said, which was yes, 1,000 times yes.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's where we're at. And, with all this that's going on, who knows what that's going to look like and when and all that. But we want to actually have something where the people that are important to us and who we are important to can be there with us.
To celebrate the creation, right? Like we actually got clear in that this was a creation, that it didn't have to look like his marriage or my marriage or any idea of marriage. And even the ceremony itself, like the wedding, didn't have to be this dramatic, like overdone thing or underdone thing. Like, again, we're back in the sandbox and like we're picking up a toy and like going, oh, that's cute, but that's not us, or, oh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
And there's no stress, there's no angst, there's nothing around it, which is so distinct, it is truly coming from like a brand new space or a brand new sandbox, if you will. And then we're like picking up things and putting it in and taking things out. And it's really a creation and it's an ongoing conversation, and not being attached to it has to be this way or it has to not be that way.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, that theme that has kind of carried through everything is that we really do operate from that standpoint of we get to create our lives, and in that space it gives others the freedom to create their life and what's possible for them out of our space and what we bring to the world. So there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that.
Yes. Minor. No biggie.
With that, that's just a beautiful, beautiful place to end this episode, because you said it perfectly, and I love the both of you. I'm so happy for you. I love your love. I love that you can come. Oh, yes. Everyone needs to watch the YouTube video because they're just so freaking cute. And I love that this podcast is a platform in which you can communicate what's possible in relationships, and that it's an extension of, what you want in the world, right? Okay. Yeah, so thank you 1,000 times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us on. We absolutely love and adore you. You are one of our absolute favorite humans. And, that you have kind of been there through the genesis of all of this is just fantastic. And yes, we can't wait for this whole thing to end so you can come up here and we can give you big hugs.
I cannot wait for that either. Yes, I love you to pieces. And it has been just my absolute honor and privilege to watch all of the stages of your relationship and to be a part of some of those conversations. And truly a privilege to know the two of you, inspiring, beautiful souls. I love you.
Thank you. We love you.
Likewise. And thank you for your contributions and your sounding board. And, you asked if we wanted to plug anything. Honestly, like your podcast, like I did really take a lot of what you had created with your guests and go back to Rusty. And even if it didn't apply to us, it inspired, and was the genesis of a conversation that just took us to a new level. So thank you for being that person that actually has the space for people to look at, creating what works for them.
Yeah. And I would actually plug you as a relationship counselor as well. Cause you helped me with a difficult conversation that cleared the way for a lot of this. So.
Yes.
Thanks.
Love you.
Thanks, Elaine. All right. I love the both of you.
All righty.
All right, all of you love nerds, thank you for everyone who just tuned in to my latest episode. I appreciate all of you. I hope that you learned a lot. Again, if you like this podcast, please like it on the channel that you are watching on. If you would like to give me a review, please do. On the Anchor app, you can actually leave voice recordings for suggestions for upcoming episodes. I'm always up to hear what you would like to hear on the podcast, things that you're dealing with, things that you see, questions that you would like to have answered, or just topics that you think that people could really learn from. Please let me know, and I will set up an episode to do that. You can reach me at lovedrippingfromthewalls@gmail.com. You can also reach me on my Instagram, Love Dripping From The Walls, or Facebook, Love Dripping From The Walls. I also do one-on-one coaching. So I do one-on-one coaching, and if you would like to have a initial call, a discovery call for my one-on-one coaching, please reach out to me again at lovedrippingfromthewalls@gmail.com. Thank you all. Keep listening and keep loving. And if you're watching, keep watching.